Welcome to the first inaugural Draceon video podcast. I know everyone is excited, and I would like to welcome Jeff Shelton, the president of Draceon Corporation. He is quite the character, so y'all have it in the books.
Well, of course, being your father, I would have to be quite the character.
You got that right.
I'd like to start off with telling you a little bit about Draceon Corporation. And of course you know it, Connor, because you've lived it. We formed Draceon in Jacksonville, Alabama, because of the fact that we formed it on noble intentions, that we put the customer needs first. Now, I put Jacksonville, Alabama first. I've had many opportunities over my career to move from Jacksonville, but I've never moved from Jacksonville with the exception of moving to Europe and China for a couple of years.
What is the biggest difference between us and our competitors?
Well, the biggest difference between us and our competitors is our business model. Our business model is set up that we make money on the initial sale, only a reasonable amount. We don't charge what the market will bear. We charge what's a reasonable markup for us. Our goal is long-term profitability. We do not expect to make money on the sale of spare parts. If we did, we would never sell a 10-year warranty. We sell air cannons, but more importantly, we sell peace of mind. You buy the Draceon air cannon and you have a peace of mind so that when you go home over a holiday, you don't have to worry about coming back to the plant and fighting buildup. We use industry standards. For instance, we activate our air cannons with air cylinders, NFPA air cylinders, so you can buy all the spare parts from any place on the market that you want. So we can't hold you hostage on the price, or guess what? We can't say it's obsoleted, and so now you've got to buy my new air cannon. That's not our game. We're there to treat you like our mama, and I wouldn't do that to my mama.
And as y'all can see on this table, we have this very prestigious looking thing right here. I'm sure some of the people know what it is. But Jeff, would you care to go in detail on how this beautiful thing came into existence?
Well, one of the things that I noticed, when you look at many air cannons, this rubber seal goes out. And so the air cannon OEM sells a complete piston replacement because it's molded in. So what we do is you take this screw out, and the seal is held in place with this plate, and you just replace the seal, which is very inexpensive. Regardless of how good an air cannon works, it's going to require some tender loving care. My air cannon, their air cannon will break if you don't give it tender loving care. So this is just one of the ways that we give our air cannon tender loving care. Cheap replacement parts, cheap. Can I add reliable, even more reliable? I would be shocked if you replace anything but that seal in 10 years. Now, you're probably going to replace the seal in 10 years before it breaks because it's so simple. We like to say we kiss our system. Keep it simple, stupid. And everybody knows we're from Alabama, so how smart can we be, right? But we're smart enough to know if we kiss our product, it's going to sell. We can take cleaning area from 1 meter to 5 meters, and we will sell replacement nozzles for a fraction of the cost what other people sell nozzles for, but we'll give a 3-year life guarantee on it. In other words, if you have to replace that nozzle before 3 years, it's on us.
Now, back here is a book called Selling Boldly. About 2 months ago, Jeff strongly recommended all of us to read this book. And it was a very good read, and I feel like it changed my acumen for business. Would you care to share some of your highlights with this book?
Well, one of the book, it grabbed me from the very beginning. It has 3 stories, and one story is you go to a coffee shop to buy coffee, and they sell you bottled water. Well, they make more money on bottled water. So you always... our goal is not to lower the price of the air cannon system, even though our air cannon system is priced lower, but to keep the price but give you the bells and whistles that you need. For instance, the water, you need a sip of water after you drink coffee. So they keep, but they increase the price because they're all about increasing profitability. We're about increasing the peace of mind. We increase your peace of mind because when you buy Draceon, you know that you can go home and not worry about having to come off of vacation to fiddle with buildup. In fact, we've had examples of this. Years ago, we sold a system for cooling towers, and I warned them, don't let it build up before you put the system in. Well, they didn't do it. So 4th of July was coming up, and guess what? Their cooling tower was plugged up. So they rushed to get it in service. And they cycled it, and the whole thing shook. And they go, what? In the control room, what have you done? A pressure drop just dropped drastically. Well, because we eliminated the base of the buildup, the whole buildup, a bus fell down, shook it, and they kept firing, and it shook a little less each time. And so finally they quit firing and went home and enjoyed the 4th of July because their tower wasn't plugged anymore. I've been to every continent in the world now, except Antarctica. That's the only one. And I don't think there's any cement plants there. And a couple of things that I've always seen in cement plants is that each cement plant has an air cannon. They probably have too many air cannons, and they all leak air. We're going to show you how to reduce the number of air cannons. We're going to show you how to eliminate the leaks.
Air consumption and with leakage, it's amazing how big of a problem that is.
Most of our competitors, they fill their tank and they keep it filled.
That sounds like a bomb.
Well, that's the way I classify it, as a bomb. A filled, say, air cannon can dislodge in it, and there's been cases where it's gone miles, right? And there's been a case in Brazil where one dislodged and killed somebody. So it is dangerous. It is dangerous. So we go, why fill it? Why fill it? If you buy a zero leak valve, you're going to pay a lot more money for it. Our valve will leak eventually because all air cannons leak. But you know what? We take 10 seconds to fill our tank. So we have 10 seconds out of every 10 minutes, which we have the potential to leak, which virtually eliminates all leaks. And it seems common to me, common sense. We say you follow the science and use common sense. Common sense says, I don't want air in that tank because that's not good.
So one pet peeve I have in my experience dealing with industrial and cement applications, that an air cannon is often in a very tough place to reach. Do you have any quick fixes on how to solve a problem like that?
First of all, isn't it crazy how rude buildup is? It happens in inconvenient places. Anybody can put an air cannon there, but not everybody knows how to put an air cannon in a spot where it's located so where you can perform maintenance on it. If you install the air cannon right and you follow the science, you can install the air cannon so where it's easy for maintenance so that you can perform maintenance on it. I was at a plant yesterday, this week. They said, we bought a monitoring system that tells us they name the cannons the flying air cannons because they have to fly up to get them. He goes, yeah, it tells us 3 out of the 4 aren't working, but we can't work on them. I go, so why did you get a monitoring system? To tell you how bad your installation is? I would say you need an installation so where if it tells you you're bad, you can get to it and repair it. If not, who cares? You just find out when buildup occurs. That's when you don't want to find out.
So one thing that I believe that sets us apart versus other people is we have an understanding of how to attack buildup, and that you can use buildup to get rid of buildup if you have enough power. Could you go into detail on that?
Yeah, one of the things that you have to understand is what makes an air cannon work. And typically people go, oh, it's peak force. Well, peak force is an instantaneous force. You blow it up, and if it's molten or lava-like or like mud-like, it doesn't blow up very well. You have to push it out of the way. So you need a lot of momentum and you need a lot of kinetic energy, which goes back to the volume of your air tank and the velocity in which it exits. Because, for instance, we like a 400-liter cannon if it's a tough, stubborn application, because you need a lot of energy to push it out of the way. It's not like a 98-pound weakling. You can't just shove it a little bit and he moves out of the way. It's like a 300-pound NFL lineman. You got to really knock him.
So what type of testing do you do to determine if your air cannon is successful or not?
Well, a lot of the testing that you do to determine, you kind of hid two questions in there. What kind of quality control do you do to make sure you can deliver what you do? And we do it on two ways. We do testing on moving material. We'll show you a lot of sand firings where we're moving sand out of the way. But we'll also do CFDs. Now, a CFD is only as good as it's calibrated. So we use the testing to calibrate the CFD, and so we know our CFD's right, so we know how much area we can clean based on the pressure and the velocity of the that's shown on that. Once we got it calibrated, we got it calibrated, and we know what we're producing at 1 meter. We know what we're producing at 3 meters, and vice versa. But the key is understanding the material. When an air cannon comes out and hits the material, you have a collision. And if the force behind the air cannon is enough to move the material or break the material, then it flies away. Now, one of the things that we did, we thought that if you increase the peak force, and we took a 4-inch cannon with a 300-liter cannon, and we moved 50 pounds of sand. We thought that if we took it and increased the peak force, we could move more material. But we didn't. We moved the same amount because energy is required to move the material. The peak force is just a different distribution of the energy. So you didn't have any more energy, so it moved the same amount. But I will tell you this: the initial force, you better stand back further because it throws the material further, throws it further.
Big dog, big dog. Who let the dog out? Big dog, big dog. Who let the dog out? Big dog, big dog. Who let the dog out? Big dog, big dog. The big dog is here, the power is pumping. Blow them away, and everything is clearing our way. Blow them away until they build up, hey, no more clogging. Blow them away, cause the dog might know the blockage away. Oh, gonna tell my friend, hey, this thing's mighty. Blow them away, 400 liters strong on the line. Blow them away, when it fires up, nothing can stop it. Blow them away, clearing out, build up in record time. Oh, who let the dog out? Big dog, who let the dog out? Big dog. The Draceon Big Dog Air Cannon, maximum power, performance, and volume.
You know, I've done quite a bit of research on peak force, and there's really not a whole lot of stuff out there. But would you say kinetic and potential energy is actually more beneficial to an air cannon than just purely looking at peak force?
Well, from a sales point of view, if I didn't tell you exactly what I thought, I would say no, because the peak force from our nozzles are much greater than the peak force. But peak force contributes, but momentum and kinetic energy is what carries the material away. Peak force breaks the bond, kinetic energy and momentum carry the material away. So if you're going to clean at a long depth, you've got to break the bond, and then you've got to have the subsequent volume to clean it, which also, you know, one of the things on the volume people misunderstand is that it's important the type of air that you use. And it's real important for two reasons. One, it impacts the cleaning performance, and two, it impacts the reliability. And I first talk about reliability. Water, I've been to plants, now there are multiple plants that said, yeah, we have a little air in our water. So their airlines they're saying is full of water, right? Water is detrimental for solenoid valves and air cannons. It is the death of them. So if you have water in your air, you need to put a water separator on it. Now, does it eliminate the problem? No, but our water separators will remove 99% of the moisture, so it makes it better. Better is better, right? I don't know how you cut it, but in my book, better is better. Water will decrease the density, the hardness of the blast. It doesn't matter how long you blast it, it matters how long and how hard you blast it. So the denser the air, the more harder that it hits. It's just like being hit with somebody that's flabby versus a muscular guy. I want a flabby guy to hit me.
I've noticed a lot of differences between our nozzles and our competitor nozzles. One thing being the turning vanes that they have. Is that a limiting factor or a key factor for them?
Turning vanes are detrimental in a couple of ways. Number one, they give a pressure drop. It's a pressure drop which loses peak force. Number two, it gives an air cannon goes whoosh, and it sucks it in on the ends and it'll clog those ports up. And so then you have half the nozzle, so you're not getting what you paid for. So if you have a nozzle that doesn't have the vanes, you don't get the buildup in the nozzle. Then with the rodding port, you can rod the nozzle out. And if you need to high pressure water wash, you have an excess port which you can high pressure water wash on. Now cardoxing, you're not going to cardox out of our air cannon. But, because that explosion, the cardox explosion is the death of many air cannons. You've got to, when that blows it up, it throws material into the air cannons. When I was in Europe, I was at a plant. They said they cardox on Tuesday and they fix air cannons on Wednesday because of all the stuff they threw up in the air cannon. If they didn't do it, then they were toast. And it's about not being in toast. It's about being always operational and always being clean. There's a couple of things that we say. Doesn't matter how powerful your air cannon is if it's not working. And it also doesn't matter how reliable your air cannon is if it's not cleaning. So you need both a powerful and a reliable air cannon.
What industry do you believe has the strongest need for air cannons?
Well, primarily, there's three industries that I think have really big applications for air cannons. Number one is the cement. A cement tower probably averages 100 air cannons per tower. And we have a plant that buys $40,000 of spare parts every year, every month, not year. $40,000 a month in spare parts. That's crazy. But there's also big applications in SCRs on coal-fired boilers because these SCRs are known to clog up with buildup, and we sweep it away. Many people have justified air cannons just for NOx credits. In other words, there's a rule that if you generate less NOx than what your permit's for, you can sell that NOx credit to another plant. So where it's cheaper for them to buy your NOx credits, so it reduces their cost and increases your cost at the same time. So it's a double whammy. But also there's a big application in silos. And one of the things that I've never understood, when you look at the internet, everybody talks about big air cannons for silos. But some of our competitors are going with our smaller air cannons. Bulk material, and if you don't believe this, check it out for yourself. We use a lot of AI, but according to AI, bulk material is moved by momentum. It doesn't blow up very well.
So one thing that's interesting about cement is that the plants are getting bigger and bigger each year because they're having to produce more and more cement. Would you say our competitors have came with the times and offered more powerful air cannons of recently, or are they just sticking in the same?
No, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. They take a 70-liter cannon, which was designed when plants were 62%, on an average, 62% smaller, expected to increase its cleaning. Come on, guys. Cleaning for an air cannon is moving material. To move material, you have to have energy. So to clean it, you have to have a proper nozzle that will focus the blast, and you have to have the energy available to move the material. Move the material. Plus, we've also found are we innovative? Well, we found that we can generate a very high pressure pulse. And so a pressure pulse is very instrumental in a lot of applications where it may not, in a riser duct, it may not break the centered material, but it will loosen it. Makes it easier for the air cannon to then break it away. So we really believe in the pressure pulse generated by our air cannon and also supplementing it with sonic horns. And of course, you could say that that's because I'm going back in my roots, because that's the first product I designed was a sonic horn. But I know sonic horns. And years ago, before I really understood the cement industry, we tried one of the first plants to go from wet process in a cement plant to a dry process. And they tried to put sonic horns in their riser duct. It made it better, but it didn't eliminate the problem. So they punted it, right? But if you use it as to supplement air cannons, you can increase your cleaning and reduce your manual cleaning and improve your operation.
I've been to countless cement plants, and I haven't seen many sonic horns there. However, I've been to many power plants, and I've seen countless sonic horns there. Do you think the cement market should pursue sonic horns?
Personally, I think that sonic horns are underutilized in cement applications. But the fact is, most of the sales force are focused on power. They don't really go to cement. So it's a forgotten market for them. I think it's a market that's high growth, and I think that we're in a position where we can grow the market. But the thing about it is, it needs to be supplemental cleaning to the air cannon. A combination of an air cannon and a sonic horn will improve the cleaning. So there's a lot of applications that are unexplored, which need someone that's willing to take a risk. And I'm telling you, you're talking to the man who's willing to take a risk. Today, we talked to a guy about risk. And I go, you view it as a great risk. I view it as no risk because I've been there, done that. It's a small change. You see it as a large change. I see it as a small change. Been there, done that is invaluable. And there's no one that has the experience. And I know that I'm bragging on myself now, but there's no one in the world that has nearly the experience with sonic horns and air cannons than I do. An air cannon is nothing more than a tool. I can put a hammer in your hand and you get one result, or I can put a nail gun in your hand and you get a much better result. I want to put the nail gun in your hand if it's the proper tool.
Well, I'm sure everyone has enjoyed this. Please stay tuned for our next episode of the Draceon Video Podcast.